Hello and welcome to the InterPlex. In the fall of 2022, while researching an article about the state of science in Brazil, I had the opportunity to speak with Brazilian Earth System scientist Carlos Nobre. Nobre is a professor at the Institute for Advanced Studies at the University of São Paulo, has been calling attention to the global importance and threats to the Amazon rainforest for decades. He spearheads the Amazonia 4.0 initiative, while also serving as co-chair of the Interdisciplinary Science Panel for the Amazon. We had an enlightening conversation about his vision for a standing forest, flowing river bioeconomy in the Amazon, the importance of weaving together traditional indigenous knowledge with technology and modern science, as well as the urgency of fostering evidence-based policy. I began by asking him about the establishment of an Amazonia Institute of Technology and how he believes the Amazon can be sustainably developed.
The idea from the design, from the beginning, from the birth of the ideas is really how to contribute with mostly a science-based, technological innovation-based development pathway for the Amazon, which is really geared towards the so-called standing forest bioeconomy. How to develop a new bioeconomy which depends on the forest standing healthy forests, not monoculture, but healthy forests. Agroecological systems will be very important elements in this new economy. All the tremendous potential still not realized of the Amazon biodiversity. So that's the idea of the Amazonia Institute of Technology. In Portuguese, we call the AME, we call in Portuguese AMI, which in Italian means friends, as you may know. But we say in Portuguese, amici, from AM. Amici in Portuguese means friends, so we created this logo, kind of friends of the Amazon, amici dell'Amazzone, in Italian. So anyway, so this is the idea, amici. So we are designing, we created the Felix Priest, one idea, we in July, and now we are starting to develop a full-fledged feasibility study. So in this initial design, we have this institute first. It's Pan-Amazonic. It's not Brazilian. It's Pan-Amazonic. We want to engage all Amazonian countries, but at least in the beginning discussions, we are starting with Colombia and Peru. And we are not close to cooperation with other Amazonian countries. So the idea is to have 5 thematic areas we call R&D centers, centers for research and development. This 4 overall concepts and centers, although they are not centralized, it's distributed across the Amazon countries. This is, one is waters, the hydrological, the waters of the Amazon. As you know, the Amazon has the largest fluvial hydrological system in the planet. Discharge is about 210 cubic meters per second. The largest rainforest in the planet, the largest rainfall in the planet. So all those things. So water has a tremendous potential. The Amazon over tens of millions of years evolved with the Andes. The Andes mountains generated tremendous biodiversity. The largest biodiversity on the planet is in the Amazon, but also particularly near the Andes. So the Amazon has also identified 53 different aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. This is the largest diversity of ecosystems in the planet. So the one of the centers is the water. The other one is forest and social biodiversity. So really, how forests are important. The Amazon also the largest biodiversity in the planet, as I mentioned. 13% of all known plant and animal species are in the Amazon. And the third center is altered landscapes. We have more than 2 million square kilometers of the Amazon forest, clear cut or degraded. So how to create many science to restore, use all landscapes to create tens of thousands of agroecological systems, which will feed a powerful, as I mentioned, standing force bioeconomy. The fourth one is sustainable infrastructure. 95% of all deforestation in the Amazon falls within 5.5 kilometers on each side of all roads. Mm-hmm. Primary, secondary, illegal roads, all roads, private land holding roads, all those things. So anyway, and the fifth one, the last one, of course, is urban Amazon. In the whole Amazon, 44 million inhabitants in the Amazon basin. Not all forest, 44 million inhabitants, 28 million in Amazon. Brazil has almost 60% of the forest. And so 65% is urban. In Brazil, over 70% is urban population. So also one of the centers would be really how to develop a sustainable economy for the Amazon, also inducing development in the urban areas of the Amazon. So those are the 5 R&D centers. So we are starting now, as I mentioned, the full-fledged feasibility study, and the MIT is helping. They helped us in the first pre-study, and then now they are helping. That's why we're going to the MIT this coming week. We start to engaging more professors there, more scientists who help us design now, and eventually to become a long-term partner for us for the implementation. So we are finishing the design by, I would say, August 2023. And then, of course, this is a big challenge. We are also in the design creating the idea of the so-called Amazon Reset Facility, how to create a big endowment fund to fund the creation, the construction of the Amici, but also an endowment fund which will really support the R&D, the education, all those things necessary. So this is the idea.
Is this privately or publicly funded then? Is it through?
Both. As I mentioned, we talked about Pan-Amazon, Amazon, but also public-private partnership. We are going to start the construction of this public-private partnership from day zero, even from day minus 1 year. Now, we are already starting to engage private sectors in Brazil. I don't know if some of the people you interviewed to you, group of mostly private sector representatives, they created the so-called consultation for the Amazon. And this was created by one of the founders of the cosmetic company, Natura. And Natura uses a lot of the products from biodiversity, Amazon biodiversity. So the name of this, one of the co-founders of Natura is Guilherme Leal. And he also created consultation for the Amazon. And we are partnered with the consultation. So basically, we want to draw the attention, partnership, and the financing. So this institute, the idea is to have, of course, the education part, undergraduate, graduate, postdocs, etc., but also around these research centers, technological clusters. Some people call, what do we need for the Amazon? Some people create a journalist in Brazil, a famous journalist, Moreira Salles. He created this term, the Silicon Valley of biodiversity. So this is a little bit of the idea, the Silicon Valley of biodiversity. And of course, as you know very well, the Silicon Valley in reality is a public-private, but certainly University Stanford, Caltech, University of California, and the private sector partnerships, all this huge number of companies, the industry, all those things. So that's the idea.
Does that mean you're looking to also build new knowledge and innovation at these centers?
Absolutely. New knowledge for a sustainable development of the Amazon. So there is a big check how to develop this new knowledge, innovation, and also another challenge the Amici wants to propose and pursue, and this is a big challenge globally speaking, how you do not neglect the knowledge of traditional people, indigenous people, communities knowledge, how you merge that with science-based technological innovations as we define our technologies. So this is also, we are going to attract a lot of indigenous people, indigenous students, indigenous scientists to merge, to see, because the indigenous people, they have been living for 12,000 years in the Amazon, always with the forest standing.
I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that too, actually. That's something that I work on quite a bit and is interesting for me. Have you engaged any of the indigenous leaders yet? And what are some of the proposals at this point for weaving together the traditional knowledge with the modern technological innovation? Do you have any frameworks to go on with that?
Well, we have to develop the frameworks. So yes, for now the study that we are carrying out, we are going to engage key some scientists. So we are engaging now, and it's a big challenge. Mm-hmm. So the framework would be in the design of Amici. We want to have clearly the participation of the indigenous community, indigenous science as well, not because there are some indigenous scientists who have done PhDs in Brazilian or international universities. Now we're talking, yes, in addition to those, but also to draw the attention of indigenous science and really bring those things together. And so the framework is to have the Amici, the research centers, as places where we are going to look for ways to merge that traditional knowledge with modern science, with technological innovations. Also, we've been in touch with many indigenous leaders, and they want to draw for their own well-being modern technologies. They want telecommunications. They want to be to have Wi-Fi access to all data center, to universities. So this is not that indigenous people, they want to be isolated. However, they have, of course, the knowledge. They lived with the forest for thousands of years. And so we have to learn a lot with them. And in the indigenous communities, most indigenous communities, really that in-depth knowledge about biodiversity is carried out by women. They are the ones who know a lot about that. And they are professors. They transmit that knowledge from generation to generation. So also the idea is to draw attention, to invite, to have indigenous women also as part of Amici. So I'm not saying this is easy because we do not have many good examples in the world, but that's the idea, to have the Amici to be a center for merging indigenous knowledge with our science and also technological innovations.
Very interesting. I wonder because from what I understand, part of this is to give sort of alternative income sources that are part of the sustainable development related to standing forests. Does that mean that with the traditional knowledge, you're also trying to work with some of the traditional products, the forest products or the crafts or any medicine, traditional medicine, things like that might be commercialized to then provide an income for the Amazon region? Is that part of the idea?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yes. And so the idea is really how to merge their knowledge, let's say pharmaceutical, and how to make, of course, drugs very complicated because, as you know, our societies, not indigenous societies, because they use hundreds of drugs on the biodiversity for thousands of years. So they don't need approvals by health sector. But of course, for us to bring one of those drugs they use to our societies, as you know, it usually approval of one drug between 5 and 10 years. So this is not a trivial matter. But anyway, that's the idea, bringing together that knowledge to benefit all traditional communities, including the indigenous people. There are 0.2 million indigenous people living in the and so that's the idea, but also not only pharmaceuticals is slightly more complicated, but mostly, let's say, we have many indigenous ethnic groups producing cocoa, producing Brazil nuts, producing 10, 20, more than 100 products of the forest. They already are selling some of those raw products, let's say cocoa seeds for chocolate production. But of course, the idea of Amici is also to do capacity development in all those communities, indigenous, Afro-descendants, quilombolas, and riverine communities, to do value adding the value chains, basically industrialization. So that's the idea. We are in touch with 4 or 5 indigenous leaders. They are really dying to bring industrialization to their communities. They want to say, we produce cocoa, Brazil nuts, but we have zero industrialization. So they saw only the raw materials. That is really not sufficient to improve their social, economic life. So they want to bring industrialization, to bring value add. For the Amici, we will also to do capacity development at a large scale to improve the livelihoods of all these communities, including urban communities. Because the Amazon, all of the Amazon, in 6.5 million square kilometers, we did an initial survey. How many biofabrics you have in the Amazon industrializing the products of the forest? So in all Amazonian countries, we detect no more than 50 in 6.5 billion square kilometers. So this is nothing. This is nothing. And yes, I mean, there's a few good examples. The potential is gigantic. However, the industrialization in the Amazon is almost zero. The only except is Manaus, but Manaus is like, the border between Mexico and the US. This is manufacturing, what do you call, I forgot in Spanish, they have a name in Spanish for those companies. I mean, there is no creativity there. They are just manufacturing things that come from the products, the raw materials, the patents. All those things come from other countries, mostly the US, in the border between Mexico and the US. They are only there because, Mexican employees make much less salary than American employees. So the Manaus industrial, they call industrial pole, it's like that. I mean, absolutely nothing. What's the green industry in Manaus? Almost zero. It's all motorcycles, computers, TV, electronic materials. How much of that is developed in the Amazon? Zero. So, although of course the industrial sector in Manaus generates 80,000 direct employees. This is certainly very important for the economy of Manaus. But how an industrial sector survives in Manaus when they are not competitive to other industrial technological clusters like Silicon Valley or China or Korea, South Korea, or Europe? It's because we Brazilians, we subsidize $10 billion a year. All of us Brazilians are putting in Manaus for them to keep in. So yes, you may say, well, they have 80,000 direct data, industrialized jobs. Those people are middle class. Yes, but all Brazilians, we are putting there $10 billion a year for that. So this is not the model. Amici wants to show the potential of the new bioeconomy, standing for bioeconomy, really to industrialize all those products. So anyway, that's the idea.
So do you think are you envisioning that with Amici there'll be innovation and then the industrial workforce that exists in and around Manaus can then participate in the new economy of the region?
Anywhere in the Amazon, not necessarily Manaus. Manaus, yes, but of course there is a big question mark whether the powerful political, industrial, economic sector of this industry would or not agree.
Would be accepted, sure.
Something like 20 years ago, this industrial sector in Manaus, they start talking about creating a green industry. Green industry. So all of us were very excited. Wow, what a good idea. Yes. 20 years later, zero creation of it. So we thinking, it's like if you go to to the border, Mexico and US, and say, let's remove all these plants here. Let's bring some industry here on North Mexico. Forget it. I mean, the industrial sector there will say, forget it. Mm-hmm. We don't want that. We want to continue our model. So that's a big question, whether Manaus will really be, of course, almost 3 million people live there. There are, a few universities. There is a good research center, INPA, IMPA. But yes, for sure, the Amici will have research centers there. Mm-hmm. No question about that. Whether Manaus will be the first city in the Amazon to move toward this standing force bioeconomy, I doubt it. I think that will happen in other Amazonian cities.
Other places.
Amazonian states, not Manaus.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit to when you were talking about capacity building for the communities, Afro-descendant and also Indigenous. Is that focused purely on industrialization, commercialization, or is it also scientific, technological capacity building that you envision for the communities?
Technological capacity building in also all sorts of services. Also, this that Amici will have elements of tropical medicine, mm-hmm. Health. So there will be also capacity building in those elements as well, in the well-being of all societies in the Amazon, including urban. As I said, one of the 5 research centers, R&D centers, is urban Amazon. So yes, there will be a lot of capacity building in technological innovation, in developing science, and so it's not only in industrialization. Industrialization is one element out of many elements that the Amici will have.
Anything related to data collection, for example, to partner with scientists for biodiversity or climate or precipitation monitoring or water quality, anything like that?
There will be technological developments in monitoring of biodiversity. Yes, there will be. But I'm not saying this Amici will have to be leader for all areas. Let me give one example.
Just to have an idea of what some of the initial vision is. Yeah.
That's why we're calling Institute of Technology. It's not a university. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, Amici is more like MIT. That's why we look for collaboration with MIT. And it's not like Harvard or like Stanford or like Princeton. So it's not a university. It does not have almost all areas of knowledge. For instance, does not have medicine, does not have law at school. But for instance, like MIT or like Harvard, we hope to also, one of the elements of the Amici will be what we are calling Amazonia Rainforest Business School, which is equivalent, let's say, Harvard Business School, MIT Sloan School of Management. So the idea is really also, because we do not have in the Amazon any Amazon Rainforest Business School. The business schools in the Amazon much more geared toward the existing economy, agricultural, cattle ranches, mining, the industrial sector in Manaus. So we do not have really the innovative economics for standing force bioeconomy. So these Amici will also have almost like Sloan School of Management or Harvard Business School turn to this new economy, not traditional economy. So this is also, but again, it's not university. It's a
I understand.
Technological institute. It does not have all the fields of knowledge.
I'd like to shift a little bit. It's related, but also more general, which would be asking about some of the, since we're talking about MIT as well, some of the energy sources that you're envisioning for these kinds of commercialization efforts, and just in general, what kind of energy options do you see are best for the Amazon region? Are they more decentralized? Do you see connecting to the national grid? Do you see advanced technologies, biomass, solar? What's in your mind regarding energy?
Yeah. Keep in mind that I mentioned one of the 5 R&D centers is in sustainable infrastructure. Okay. And among sustainable infrastructure, of course, energy is essential. Mm-hmm. So infrastructure for the future Amazon must be for the planet, not for the Amazon only.
Sure.
Renewable energy, decentralized renewable energy. So the potential for solar energy is very high in the Amazon. Mm-hmm. The potential for, I forgot the name, is...
run-of-the-river hydroelectric type of generator?
The river. That's the name.
Run of the river. Okay.
Run of the river. So this is also tremendous potential. Wind energy, also in most of the Amazon, the winds are very weak, but in Roraima, there is strong winds, and along the Atlantic coast, near the Andes, also, on going up the Andes, there is also strong winds. So you have wind, solar all over the Amazon, this run of the rivers, electricity, and also, of course, biomass. However, one has to be careful. Biomass is more complicated. I think, we have to think about in the future for the planet, really, the energy generation. We have really to go back to billions of years ago and say, what's the reason for life on the planet? Solar radiation. So solar radiation is the greatest potential. And of course, now, very quickly, we are improving on green hydrogen. Mm-hmm. So green hydrogen, electrolysis from solar energy, creating this biofuel. Well, it's not bio in a way because it's water. It's a electrolysis water. Mm-hmm. So then you have this fuel with hydrogen, fuel green. So, really producing all these fuels for transportation, etc. You won't need in the future biomass. So biomass will be mostly for other things, for drugs, for biodiversity, for drugs, biomass, for food, etc. So energy probably it will be mostly related to solar, wind, run of the river, and also green hydrogen. So we might really have to have a plan to decouple our needs from biofuels, mm-hmm. because biofuels may drive to deforestation. It's very difficult to promise that the biofuels will not drive deforestation. All over the world, as you know, in Indonesia, the main driver of deforestation is palm. And in many countries of the world as well, sugarcane. Certainly in São Paulo state, decades ago in the 70s, mm-hmm. sugarcane was a driver of deforestation. Soy for biodiesel is a driver of deforestation in the savannas. So anyway, I'm not very confident that biofuels, they may be important in transition. So biofuels, as you know, carbon dioxide emissions is much less than burning kerosene, gasoline, diesel, coal. However, we really have to think future in the second half of this century. All energy needs nothing to do with biomass, mm-hmm. because we can extract most from solar energy. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. Yes, the transition in there, we'll have to move to decentralized renewable energy.
Great. And when I ask about biomass, I wasn't necessarily thinking biofuels like palm or sugarcane, maybe more just small-scale production from residuals from agricultural, things like that, to produce methane and things like that to run.
Absolutely. Now, that's for sure. Like, in California, right. the huge production of methane from residuals, all mm-hmm. residuals, from restaurants, from kitchen, mm-hmm. all residuals. Mm-hmm. And so this is important. So I did not mention that, but certainly that's a way. Recycling, this is essential for a circular bioeconomy. Right. Circular economy has to recycle all residuals. As you know, 30% of all food in the world is waste. So yes, this 30% of food waste and the potential for producing methane. Yes, you're absolutely right. I did not mention that, but yes, biofuels from residuals, the potential is gigantic in the Amazon.
Are there any thoughts for more, well, you spoke about green hydrogen, but more advanced technologies that are like even going towards the realm of fusion technologies or Generation 4 decentralized nuclear batteries or anything like that? Or any of these things on the radar for an Amazon?
Not in the radar, because, it would be very difficult for us if we want to create in the Amazon, and we say, let's create one of the centers for disruptive technologies like nuclear fusion. But this is, why? Because, there are so many of the top centers in the world, in Europe, in the US, in many countries, in China, in Japan. So, and you're talking really, because our initial calculation for the Amici is something like initial investment of several $100 million, 600, 700, create out fund of $500 million. And then Amici would cost about $50 to $60 million a year. I mean, this is ridiculous compared to the amount that today the world is spending on nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion development, spending billions and billions and billions of years a year today. So, if eventually nuclear fusion becomes doable, et cetera, may take 20 to 50 years, perhaps 20 years just to say yes or no, and then 50 years to become something really a reality. So eventually, yes, that will change the world, et cetera. But anyway, so that's why we did not design in a sustainable infrastructure research center. We are talking more about the existing renewable wind, run of the river, electricity, biomass-based biofuels, residual, all those things, but not. Yes, nuclear fusion is a big question mark for the planet. So we said, there are thousands and thousands of top scientists working with nuclear fusion in the world. In the Amici, we hope initially, at least for the first 10 years, we're talking about perhaps 250, 300 professors, scientists there. So, there is no way to compare with nuclear fusion investments that the world is making. So we are being more modest in thinking more in terms of, the new bioeconomy for the Amazon, but not the solving all the energy demands of the planet, 8 billion people, nuclear fusion, one day, doable, wonderful. But we are not really moving that direction.
Of course, I understand. And I guess the follow-up question to that is, if there is a disruptive technology that's created at MIT or another part of the world, do you envision having the infrastructure in place to be able to implement the new technologies in the Amazon if it's appropriate?
Absolutely. Any new technology, the Amici will also. That's why we, from day zero, we are constructing in partnership with MIT, with other universities. I forgot to mention that also with Fraunhofer in Germany.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And the Fraunhofer is very interested to contribute to the sustainable infrastructure, to Amici. So yes, for sure, Amici would also, that's a good question you asked. Amici would be the Amazonian way quickly importing sustainable, innovative technologies for anything. Let's say biotechnology, anything that's developed in any laboratory, any university, any institute of technology in the world that could be applied to the Amazon. Amici will be the activity quickly to bring anything that's sustainable, not anything that may bring the Amazon to a risk, but
Sure.
Anything sustainable, yes, for sure.
I'm curious what your views are. It's just in general, but about larger hydroelectric dams, the mega dams that are in the Amazon, because I think you say standing forest, flowing rivers.
Yes. Flowing rivers, yes.
So what's your long-term view of these mega dams?
Long-term view is getting to zero. Why? Because all of Brazil will be certainly completely satisfy with renewable energy. Brazil has a tremendous potential in solar. North Carolina now produces a lot of wind energy, one of the top places on the planet. So therefore, Brazil, like most Northern Hemisphere countries like US, Canada, Europe, all these countries are planning the disappearance of hydroelectric dams in the next 50 years. So many of those dams already have been brought to extinction, many. So there is very little new. The new hydropower, large hydropower dams are in the tropics and in China. So there is no need. For the future, sustainable future, we do not need hydroelectricity, although for sure they, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, they much less. So it's important for the transition. However, they also cause tremendous disturbance on aquatic ecosystem. And also, as you probably know, in these indigenous community, riverine communities, they're disturbing this Belomont hydropower dam in the Pará state is critical. It's bringing hell to the communities there. So, and also all these, they have plans for hundreds of hydropower dams in the Amazon that would completely interfere with in the 70% of all rivers in the world, they have dams. So you completely change. And some people think, let's say a society in 1,000 years time, let's assume they did not know about anything that we did, what you're calling Anthropocene, how they are going to find out we really changed the planet geologically. And the first way to demonstrate to generations in thousands of years, they will go to the bottom of the ocean and they will immediately see that during this period in the last 100, 200 years, the sediment transport was reduced by 70%. So what happened? Well, 70% of the rivers in the planet, they have dams. So they store the sediments. The sediments are reaching the oceans at much slower pace. I'm just giving you one example. So anyway, the dams all over the rivers on the planet, they are a big threat to the aquatic ecosystems worldwide. In the Amazon, so the large dams, the small dams. So the idea is really not to promote dams, because dams are interfering, let's say, near the Andes, the place with the largest biodiversity on the planet. There are many dams, there are many planned dams, because there is the electric potential there because of the slopes very high. But we have really the new model, the Amici, will not talk about that. Sustainable infrastructure will be an infrastructure that ensures the maintenance of the maximum, so zero dams.
So ideally, in the future, as you develop these sustainable, renewable technologies and they're functioning better for the Amazon, do you envision there being a movement to deconstructing the dams that do exist and they're causing so much damage?
Absolutely. I mean, basically, as soon as this is of course, 70% of electricity in most dams in the Amazon are exported to outside of the basin. So anyway, this is not only a challenge for the Amazon, this is a challenge for all Amazonian countries. So basically, we have to replace our hydroelectric. Brazil has 130 gigawatt of hydropower electricity. So to replace. So this is something we're talking about, something between 30 and 50 years. We think 30 to years, some of those dams in the Amazon will get to their end.
30 years.
So it will be, in some ways, a slow transition as the dams are getting to the end of their life cycle. Yes, then you have replacement renewable energy. So then, of course, after that, you remove the dams. U.S. is removing a lot of the dams now. So that's the idea. So it's not immediate. Certainly, the idea of this new bioeconomy the new infrastructure is zero new dam.
Zero new
Not
dams.
removing the existing ones, but letting those, reach their life cycle, and then, of course, remove them.
Makes sense.
This year we have the record of emissions. 2023 higher, 2025 higher. Some people say perhaps after 2025 we're going to slow down emissions. So I'm really concerned. Two major concerns. One is that for climate change, we are communicating the risk. Science is communicating the risk to humanity, to well-being of humans, and to all of the planet with, I would say, very little impact. The science also and technology has looked for solutions: sustainable infrastructure, sustainable energy, sustainable consumption. Mm-hmm. We have to consumption of meat, particularly beef, a lot of emissions coming from cattle, all those things. Science shows how. I will give an interview to Netflix. They're starting a series on the health impact of beef on humans. Mm-hmm. So health impact, particularly in the Americas, terrible. They are making a series, 5 episodes. I will help. They come here 31st October. I will give an interview because they want to know why we have so much cattle ranches in Brazil, etc. I'm not a health scientist, but so this is obvious. Science is saying, over $400 billion of health costs of people with diseases caused by excessive consumption of meat, of beef, particularly. All those things that science is telling. Are we changing? No, beef consumption is increasing in the world. So, I tell you, I'm frustrated. Science is advancing so much for the well-being of people, for planetary health, for the well-being and the health of the whole planet, and we are not changing. So this is a big mystery for me. And this is true of the Amazon. So I say, that, okay, this is one. The other element that concerns me a lot is the fact that, and during the pandemic, we could see that the assessments, all these assessments, polls with many populations show a small increase in the global population on the role, importance of science. Most people were concerned about the pandemic, and they believed what science was saying, the risks, the lockdown, the need for lockdowns, and rush to taking the vaccines as they became available, all those things. So, however, what we are seeing in the world is it's impossible to predict 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. The growth of the populist movements. Former President Trump, Brazilian, Venezuelan president, Nicaraguan president, Turkey, Poland, Hungary, Philippines, all have populist presidents. They all have something in common. They all are anti-science. You recall President Trump said, this pandemic has no problem, etc. Our president in Brazil, Mexican president, Nicaraguan president, Turkey, all those things, they have the same view. It has nothing to do with ideology, right or left. It's populist. They are populist. And they are all anti-science. They want to keep their power, and science always does not help them keeping their power. So I'm just giving you those two answers, which are not full-fledged answers, but it's my anxiety. As a scientist, I'm becoming very anxious. Why? Particularly as a climate scientist, we are communicating the risk of climate change for decades. Now the IPCC report released 2021 to 2022, that it's an anthropogenic factor. This is not natural variability in the climate system. And still, Ukraine war is making emissions to increase. If there is a new Cold War in the world, China, Russia, etc., against the US, Europe, I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm just saying, unfortunately, how to communicate, how to make science, to communicate, make a more sustainable planet, I do not think it's a big mystery. If science can provide a much better life for the planet, for humans, why people are not really paying enough attention, why some economic sectors like fossil fuels are so powerful that they prevent a fast transition to sustainable in terms of climate change. Why the agribusiness in Brazil is so powerful, they prevent moving towards more sustainable development for all Brazilian biomes, particularly for the Amazon. This is my concern. That's why Amici, want to demonstrate the feasibility. If you think, I will make an analogy. Amici is slightly like California. Why? California wants to be the first state in the US, perhaps one of the first places on earth to be net zero.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, circular economy, renewables, changing the legal framework to prohibit. I just read this week, they will prohibit the commercialization of fossil fuel combustion engines, car in the California soon, 2035, if I'm not mistaken. And so you see, California is a good example. And we want Amici to be similar, to show the possibility of zero deforestation, zero forestation, this sustainable standing forests, flowing rivers, bioeconomy, all those things. So anyway, I'm hopeful that like California, we are going to be able to do. Why? Like in California, the Brazilian population, the Amazonian people, they do not want to destroy the Amazon. The Californians also want California to be number one in sustainability. So that's the analogy I make. So that's why I was giving you my bad news about why science does not engage or active in the planet. I'm optimistic in the sense that, Costa Rica, California, many places, Norway, they are moving towards this sustainability. For Amici will be a very important element to follow, to find a sustainable pathway for them.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And I can understand your pessimism in many ways as well. I see it in many ways, and it must be incredibly frustrating for you, having promoted the science and the sustainable trends for such a long time. I know you have to go. I have one very last thing to ask you, just about the science panel for the Amazon, Amazon We Want, because I know Dolores Armenteras from my work in Colombia. I just wonder if you can just give me a very brief synopsis of what you're trying to accomplish with the science panel for the Amazon.
Oh boy. And I think we have to have another, or you ask your colleague, Dolores, who is the co-chair with me.
Right.
She's a fantastic scientist.
Yeah, excellent.
Because, to talk about the panel, I might need 1 hour. We are so many things. We are doing so many things. I just, perhaps we should really appoint for another, or you send a message to Dolores and she will replace me, because she can talk I can talk about the panel. Yes, we formed 3 years ago, released a report in COP26. Now we are going to release 3 policy briefs in COP27. One is for forest restoration, one is for the risk of tipping points, and the third one is the importance of indigenous territories. We're working very hard. We have more than 240 scientists and members, 7 indigenous scientists. Now we are expanding a lot with Amazonian scientists, including more, young career scientists and early career scientists. Anyway, so we are doing that. But, to tell you all the panel is doing, I would need at least half an hour.
Sure.
Dan, very good talking to you. Congratulations on your work, and I hope you produce a very good material.
All right. Thanks so much, Carlos. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us for this interdialogue. You can subscribe to be notified of future episodes and by following us on our social media channels at the InterPlex. Visit our website, theinterplex.org, for more interdisciplinary and intercultural content and to join our growing collaborative community.